Good morning, class. I'm Mr. Hagar, and today we're going to go ahead and continue a little bit off some of our measurements from our last assignment. On this assignment here that we're going to go through today is we're still going to be using our square, adjustable square. We have our main style of a framing square as well, our soapstone for chalk marking. So again, this is just a basic soapstone for chalk marking. Once you mark something, it's very easy to erase it and start over as well. What we're going to do today is checking on angles if we're taking two square tubing pieces and say we want to connect into the corners. On the average, you don't want to just butt your corners together. It will not be a strong weld. So we're actually going to go through, do a 45-degree angle on these pieces of metal. We'll go through, show how to mark these out. I'm going to take them over, cut them down, and then we'll come back and show the grinding areas that we need to work on, how to tack these together, and go through the process there. So one of the first things that we need to make sure that we have is all of our tools that we need with us, so we're not running around the shop trying to find what we need. One of the biggest things that we're going to need is an adjustable square. You have your 45-degree angle that's already on the square itself, so that's going to be perfect to use. Again, we have our soapstone, our safety glasses on, and we're ready to go ahead and start making our measurements and marks. So the biggest thing is you guys want to look at, if you look at this end here, you can tell that the end is not squared off. It's been cut at a funny angle. So best bet, always find your squared end, make sure it's nice and straight. So we're going to start on the opposite side of this piece of material here because this is just scrap that I found in the shop. We're going to go ahead and make our measurements off this end. It's nice and square. You're going to take your 45-degree angle. You want to set it down on top of your material so you can see here. Once you have your measurement, you're going to go ahead and place your mark across your material. Hopefully you guys can see that 45-degree angle mark. If so, great. If not, zoom in a little bit, okay? We can definitely make this work. So we're going to go ahead and make the mark on this one, and we're going to go ahead and duplicate that mark on the other piece of metal as well. Again, making sure you guys are using the squared end that's nice and cut, not a jagged end where your angles could be off. So we're going to use the nice side. We're going to go ahead and line up on our corners. Make our mark, and hopefully you guys can be able to see this one a little bit easier. This one has a little bit of paint on it that's black, so the line does show up a little bit brighter, I hope. So again, we're going to take these over. I'm not going to go through the cutting process with you guys, but what we're going to do is go ahead and cut these down, and then I'm going to go over how to set these up correctly, how to put the bevel pieces in by using the grinding wheel. That way you have a nice strong penetration for your tacks and your weld when we go through that process. Okay, and we're back. So what I've done is I went ahead and cut both pieces. Now again, we're using scrap that's just around the shop, so these pieces definitely look a little bit different. But we went ahead and made our marks, made our cuts, and I'm going to go ahead and go through a little bit of the grinding process with you guys. So one of the biggest things is having an angle grinder, okay? Now we have multiple discs that we can use. What I'm going to use is just a flap disc on this one. We're not trying to do a heavy section of grinding on here. What we want to do is just take these edges, clean them up, and put a small little bevel on there. So as we go ahead and tack up our corner sections to make sure everything's lining up properly before we do our full weld, we want to make sure that we're getting a good penetration. So again, we're just going to go through, do a little bit of cleanup on these edges. Some of these I've already worked on a little bit, but I'm going to show you guys what we need to look at when we're taking these and grinding these down. Again, nice grinder, make sure your batteries are fully charged. Your flap disc, you want to use most of the disc, so you don't want to have a heavy angle. You want to keep this fairly flat to your material. You're going to come right across the top of this section. And if you guys can just barely look at this, I know it's probably going to be a little difficult, but what we're looking for is just a slight bevel to each section here. So we're going to put a bevel on this side, a bevel on the front section. We're going to flip over and do a bevel on the other side. And then your bottom or inside section, we're going to go ahead and make a small bevel there as well. So now that we have our bevels on all of our pieces of material on both sections, a couple different ways we can look at setting this up. One, you have your main framing square or a large square that we can use. And we can take our pieces of material and set them right in the corner and see how well it lines up at a 90-degree angle. The other thing we can do is we can take our original adjustable square and do the same thing and set it up and see if it adjusts and see how things look for setup here. Okay. Now, we do also have a third option as well, and that's our trusty magnet. So with our magnet, we know we can set this up. It's going to stay exactly where it is, so when we go to tack up the material. So it's just lining your two pieces up, setting them up, and seeing how close we are and how correct we have things. So at this point, we're a little bit off, so we need to readjust that, and that's really simple to do. One, you don't want to sit there and smack it with your hand. You just grab a hammer and just tap that down. Okay, so as we tap that down, we can move these in a little bit closer. We can readjust these, sliding them up and down. Now, if you guys look at this, there should be a slight gap on the face section. There's also going to be a slight gap in the front or outer side. There's also going to be a gap section on the bottom side or top side, depending on how you have it set up. And again, there's going to be a little bit on the internal side as well. The gap section there is so we have plenty of penetration and the two pieces of metal bond together. So you want to have a little bit of spacing in between your metal pieces. You also want to double check and look at, as you're tacking these pieces, where am I going to tack them together? If there's a mistake made, how easy is it to come apart? Okay, we want to be able to get a grinding wheel or a cutoff wheel if we need to cut our tacks and redo it. So we're going to go ahead and get set up for that side of it, and I'm going to show you guys making sure that all your pieces are lined up correctly and where to properly place your tacks. Okay, so here we are. We went ahead and we cut our material down, went ahead and grind and put the bevel sections in our pieces of material. I have it set on the magnet at this time because what we're going to do is go ahead and show you where to tack your pieces of material together at. That way, if there is a mistake, you can bring in a grinder or a cut-off wheel and we can cut those tacks out of the metal. So we're going to go ahead and show you that setup. One of the first things that we do want to go through though is safety. What do we need for safety? Okay. Right now, as you can see, I have a skull cap on, and this is going to protect the top of my head for any sparks. If you guys want to get these, you can get them at any one of the welding supply houses around here. This is my personal. I don't require them for the shop, but if you guys want to get those, you can. We want to make sure that we have the gloves that we're going to need. Our welding jackets as well. These are leather, so you guys want to make sure that you have your welding jackets. Gloves you're going to need, make sure that you're comfortable. Your welding hood. Now, some of you guys like to use these thicker gloves. These are art gloves, but it's fine. Okay, I personally like to use a little bit thinner of a glove because then I can feel the trigger on the machine itself. So on the gun assembly, you do have your trigger section here to feed out your wire. Personally, I like the thinner gloves. I can feel that a little bit better, and I feel like I have a little more control. Now, doesn't mean you can't use these bigger gloves. By all means, if you're comfortable in these, put these gloves on, okay? I'm not going to use these, so once again, these go away. So Got our TIG gloves here, so we can use these for TIG, we can use them for gas, we can use these for arc. They are thinner, so you feel a little bit more of the heat. I like using them for MIG welding as well. Again, they are a little thinner, so we do feel a little bit of the heat, so you have to be careful of that. Okay. Jacket today, I'm not going to go ahead and wear one. It's a little bit warm in here, so I'm going to be okay in my sweatshirt. I know I've taken the chance. I could put some holes in my sweatshirt, so I do recommend you guys put on a jacket or an apron to cover up. Your welding hood. Everybody needs to have one of the welding hoods. All the ones in the shop have been recently replaced. They're auto dimming, so they have a sensor in the front of them, so as soon as you strike an arc, they will auto darken, okay? On the inside, you guys always want to make sure and double check these, okay? Right now, I checked this one this morning, said the battery was good. Now it's telling me I've got a low battery. Okay, and I need to find a new hood. We did have to change the hood out. At this point in time, I didn't have any spare batteries, so we went ahead, grabbed a different hood. We want to make sure that we're checking this one as well. I've gone through quite a bit with you guys on this in the past. For the new kids that are coming in, okay, these are one of the things that we want to check, especially if you're going to be arc welding. Okay, anytime that we have an ultraviolet light from welding, you want to have your eyes protected. So, best thing to do is always come up, hit the reset or test button, depending on the style of welding hood that you have. Make sure that the lens is auto darkening. Okay, always double check your settings on the inside as well. You want to have a fairly fast sensitivity, so as soon as it sees that light, it knows to darken right away so it doesn't hurt your eyes. Your shade lens cover in here on the inside is also adjustable as well. On an average, most people tend to run about 11 or a 12 on a shade lens. Okay, everyone's going to be a little bit different. Everybody's sensitive to the eyes is a little bit different, so your sensitivity to the light, things are going to change. So does make it quite nice on these newer ones that you can adjust these right here versus having to change the lenses out and your shade numbers. On the older ones, you actually have to take the lens out, try a different one until you find the right one for you. Makes it really nice here because we can just adjust these now. So I'm going to go ahead and set this one up for me. I know what I like to have it at so I can see what I'm working on, plus be having the shade dark enough to where the ultraviolet light from the welding process is not going to burn my eyes. Okay, so again, you want to make sure that you have everything that you need and you're ready to go. So I've got my welding hood, I got my gloves, I got safety glasses on or prescription glasses that are on, that as long as they're rated for safety, you're okay there. I got my MIG pliers, so I make sure that the end of my gun assembly is nice and clean. You want to double check the end here, make sure it's not fully corroded. If it is, slide this guy off and take your MIG pliers. So this is your gas nozzle. Insert it on the inside, rotate that around, make sure the inside's nice and clean so you have a good flow coming out. Double check your contact tip, make sure that's nice and tight. Okay, you also have your isolator that's on here as well. You want to make sure that that's nice and tight. And these little portholes right here is where your gas flow comes out of. So you want to make sure that those are not blocked. Okay, this does rotate and sometimes they get loose. And you can see here where it would block the gas flow. So you want to make sure that that's on there nice and snug and that your gas flow ports are open. We're going to go ahead and put the gas nozzle back on. And we're going to leave to where the inside of the contact tip is just past the contact tube on the outside. So it's just reset a little bit on the inside. We want to make sure that the end of our wire is nice and clean. So I'm going to go ahead and feed a little bit out. And on these pliers here, they are designed to cut and leave you the amount of space that you need here. So as you're welding, that would be your adjusted height. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut that off. Now I got a nice clean piece of material here. Got our nice clean piece of material here that we're going to weld on. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my gloves, grab my welding hood. We're going to get set up here and we're going to go ahead and put some tacks right on our material that we just cut up. All right, so if we're looking at our material section here, we know we want to place the tack up on this corner and one down low. We do not want to try to tack on the inside here. We want to be able to cut this apart if for any reason that we make a mistake. So I'm going to go ahead and put a tack right up here and a tack right on this front section here as well, so we can double check, make sure nothing has moved. Okay, so we have a couple small tacks, and if you guys listen to the way the machine was running, it's having a hard time to ground through the table, through the magnet, into our metal piece. And that's okay. All we're doing right now is putting in a small tack. We want to make sure that our piece is staying together. That way we can remove it from the magnet itself, and now we have our solid piece. There's no adjustments. It's nice and solid. It's not going anywhere. If you look right in here, you can see where we put in that groove mark. So as we weld our pieces together, okay, the weld material has somewhere to go. It's going to bond these pieces, make them nice and tight. There is a little bit of a gap in between the piece here. So we're going to go ahead and do a quick little run down here, and we're going to check the rest and see how that's working out. So as we look at our material, you guys can see I've got a nice uniformed weld that's running all the way down our material, okay? Just wide enough that it's covering both pieces of the material on the opposite side of each other. One side's not favoring the other side. Nice and centered all the way down. Good flow, good setting, nice movement all the way down. At this time, what we want to do is make sure that nothing else has adjusted as the way that we've gone through this. Okay, so normally you go through a cool down process and then we'll double check. If we flip it over and you guys look, we made a mistake. The gap has gotten a lot bigger on the opposite end. So what can we do about this? Easy. We can go through, we can grind the weld down, cut it off, and start over. The other thing we can do is put in a small root weld and turn this one into a little bit of a pass. Don't be afraid of a little bit of gap, okay? We can fix this. This is the best thing about doing a lot of these welding processes. Just because the gap's a little bit bigger, we can fix it. As long as our material hasn't changed and we still have that nice 90-degree angle, we're okay to continue. Now, if your gap was much bigger than that, yes, we'd have to break it apart and redo it. So let's check really quick to make sure. So I'm just going to grab my square and we're going to check and see, are we still sitting at a 90-degree angle? Yes, we are. So I personally feel that we're still okay to continue with our welding process. Now, this first one here, I kind of showed you guys a flat weld moving across the material. These next section here, I'm going to go ahead and do this inside piece, and I'm going to show you guys a down weld. Okay, so as we will go ahead and set up for a down weld. So we're going to go ahead and do a vertical down weld, and on our vertical down weld, we're actually going to use a Z pattern as we're working down our material. So again, go ahead and grab your gun, grab your MIG pliers, go ahead and feed some wire out. We're going to cut that off to our nice good length that we're going to use, and we're going to go ahead and make this weld. I'm going to be a little bit out of position here, so hopefully you guys get the best view that you can on this. So we're going to go ahead and start at the top and work our way down on a vertical down weld. Okay, now as you can see, our material is nice and hot. Okay, if we tried to look down on the inside, which you guys are going to have a hard time seeing, should be a little bit of redness on the inside, showing that we've got a pretty good penetration. Now, if you look at the weld itself, if you guys can kind of get in a little bit close there, you can see our movement from side to side. Nice uniform, good coverage on both pieces of material. This is what we're looking for on here on a vertical down, okay? Now, we're going to go over a little bit more of the welding. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on one particular welder, okay? So today we did a little bit of our measurement, a little bit of guiding, where to place our marks, how to do some of the grinding to set our bevels in our material, where to tack our material at, showing our flat welds, our vertical down welds with the MIG machine. Now later on, we're probably going to go ahead and spend a little bit of time maybe showing you guys some arc welding as well. And then we have a few other things in plan as well for you on our next video. Guys, I really appreciate the time. Again, we are missing all the students here at the high school. You know, we want to get through this time the best that we can. We appreciate the patience that you guys are having with us, spending the time online, watching these videos, doing your quiz, doing your classwork, making sure that everything is done. Again, if you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact any one of us here at the high school. I will personally have my email address right down below. You guys can look that up. Email me at any point in time. I'll do my best to respond back to you. You guys have a great day. Good luck, and I hope you guys get a little bit of enjoyment out of what we're doing. Okay, guys, have a great one.